Welcome to episode 71 of the GT on 5G. It's the latest inside scoop on everything 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 15 minutes, and it's brought to you by More Insights Strategy. I'm Will Townsend, and joining me again this week is fellow analyst Anshel. And once again, we have Diana from Fierce Wireless. So let's get started with my first topic. This week, Dell conducted its Tech Summit, and there were several telecom-related announcements. One was on a bare metal orchestrator, which, in my opinion, has applications obviously, beyond telco. But Dell, focused that announcement on sort of telco workloads and that sort of thing. There were several edge announcements as well as Dell continues to build out its portfolio. And question for me is is Dell finally moving the needle with respect to its focus on 5G? Because they've sort of been on again, off again. But recently, there was a reorganization in the team with, an executive's departure. Dennis Hoffman is leading that group now, and he reports directly to Jeff Clark, who is the COO, I believe, who reports directly to Michael Dell. So, and obviously Michael Dell's been talking a lot about 5G. So, I mean, finally, from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot of momentum, sort of coming together. And so these announcements were quite strong. If you hit my Twitter feed, you'll find some insights there. But I'm also impressed with what Dell has been accomplishing in Europe with respect to Open RAN. So they announced several weeks ago an announcement with Vodafone. They've been doing some sort of proof of concepts with respect to an Open RAN deployment. And that involves some, common off-the-shelf, server products, not really telco grade. But they followed that up recently with another announcement, a win with TIM in Italy. And so, from my perspective, the roadmap is maturing. They're bringing these edge solutions on, which should supercharge 5G use cases. There wasn't really a lot of discussion at the Dell Tech Summit around how edge will play a role with Dell's go-to-market there. But from my perspective, all the right things are coming together. Certainly, their competitor in HPE has a much more mature telecom group. They've been, providing blueprints. HPE's been doing a lot around, orchestration and that sort of thing. So that bare metal orchestrator, I think, was their response, to what HPE's been doing. But I'm wondering, Diana, do you have any thoughts here?
You kind of touched on some of the things that I would have mentioned, which would have been, I guess just recognition of them as a player in this space. To your point, HPE has kind of been more at the forefront than they have. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Dell develops their reputation on this. Also, to me, the whole orchestration and bare metal thing, I know they positioned it as 5G because obviously they're trying to make a name for themselves there, but the edge use cases there are just, you have to think that so many people are going to tap into that, that I'm surprised that they didn't go a little harder on that front.
Yeah, I was too. And especially, when you look at, beyond, HPE, the telco group, you look at the maturity of what HPE has been doing in the market with its intelligent edge thrust, that Dell really needs to step up in my mind and really provide some clear differentiation on how their strategy is going to be different. And I think they missed an opportunity with telco. But
they got to get the messaging straight.
I agree. But let's start with your first topic, and you want to talk about Softbank and KDDI.
Yeah, so they announced this week that Nokia is going to be one of, I think it's 2 now, vendors for a shared 5G network build. They had previously announced that Ericsson is also going to be working with them on this. And so to me, I just thought it was really interesting, not even so much from a vendor perspective as just the idea of shared 5G builds, right? So we've heard about this also in China, and obviously now Japan is looking at this. And I was curious, I wanted to kind of pose the question to you guys as to whether you think this is something that's going to catch steam and maybe be replicated in, maybe some smaller countries like across Europe, maybe to help reach rural places where there's really not so much incentive financially to build to those rural locations. I'm not sure I see it so much in the US, right. But I'm curious what you guys think. Anshel?
I think that these shared builds sound like a way to, you know, lighten the burden, right? And I think that there's going to be places. I don't think these are going to be blanket deployments, like to your point. I think they make sense for rural deployments, especially when you consider that. I think one of the biggest factors is actually just the availability of sites. Um, and I think if you look at like what T-Mobile accomplished with how fast they've rolled out 600 and 2.5, a lot of that is because they owned a lot of the sites already. They took advantage of Sprint's existing sites and basically built out a network using two networks. So I think that's kind of the idea here is to take advantage of having, you know, different spectrum holdings and different sites and maximize the potential of the two together to bring it to market faster and cheaper. Now, how they, roll this out on the business side and how they, you know, count this as profits and OpEx and things like that, that'll be interesting to see. And what will happen down the road. Maybe they're just going to differentiate on services in other ways rather than trying to differentiate on the infrastructure itself, which makes sense if you ask me, just because I feel like at this point, a lot of the carriers, regardless of how hard they've tried, they're still just a pipe.
Yeah, I mean, I'll weigh in real quick. I mean, there were some announcements in the EU about a year ago, and I forget the operators. I think it was Vodafone and maybe Three, that they're basically sharing some infrastructure deployment costs as well. So I think I agree with both of your insights there, and that this is a way for coverage in rural to make sense economically, and so I think it's not going to be ubiquitous to both of your points, but I think it's an interesting way to go about it. And then I totally agree with you, Anshel. Really, the way that the operators are going to have to differentiate is based on service delivery, and some are going to be stronger in consumer versus enterprise. I've been on record stating that I think the most transformative use cases for 5G are on the enterprise side, but time will tell. But let's head to your first topic this week, Anshel. You want to talk about Qualcomm, Verizon, and Samsung?
Yes. So earlier this week, there was a pretty big announcement. I saw it happen simultaneously between Qualcomm, Verizon, and Samsung. And basically, what it was is that it was a combined announcement with all three companies, utilizing Samsung equipment and devices, I believe, and then using Qualcomm's modems. And they were basically on Verizon's network using mmWave. And what they were able to do was they were able to actually achieve an upload of 711 megabits per second. And it looks like they were using 400 megahertz of Verizon's 5G millimeter wave and 20 megahertz of their 4G. So it was actually a 4G 5G aggregate, and it was using 28 gigahertz using Samsung's compact macro vRAN, and then it was using a Snapdragon X65 modem. So this kind of shows that while millimeter wave has great downlink capabilities, it also has great uplink capabilities, which I think, if you look at what the potential is there, the uplink is actually more valuable to a lot of people than the downlink, especially in enterprise where you have lots of content creation going on and media, generation and trying to upload that. So there's a lot of potential there. The only issue is that still at this point, millimeter wave does have very limited coverage. And we've talked about, potential repeaters improving that. But right now, the uplink is getting a lot faster. And I mean, 711 megabits is more than what most people are getting on the downside. So, being able to have this is going to be really valuable in very dense locations, which is where millimeter wave works best. I could see this being incredibly useful in stadiums and other places where, concert venues where you're trying to, upload a video. You can have hundreds of users simultaneously uploading, and it doesn't even, affect the network in the slightest. So I don't know what you guys thought of this announcement, but I'll let Diana.
Yeah, sure. So I have to confess, when I first saw the announcement, I didn't read it as upload. I read it as download, and I was like, what is this? Because for so long it's been, gigabit, gigabit, gigabit. But yeah, this is really impressive for upload. And to your point, I will be interested to see if this stays for mobile or if Verizon tries to turn this into an enterprise play for fixed wireless, right? Because that's where it would be, like, to your point, very valuable because it has to be in dense locations. Which would be good for a campus if they're using fixed wireless and kind of beam it into the office. My other thought would be, I wonder if people don't go back into dense locations quite as much as everybody's kind of banking on. I will be interested to see how they translate this into a broader offering that still has value, right? So obviously these speeds are awesome. I can, to your point about content creation, doing work, things like stadiums, I'm sure will be fine, but the more office oriented use cases, I'll be interested to see how those play out and whether or not Verizon needs to look at getting these to a broader audience. Because I think if people have it in their hands, they'll find a way to use it. Will, do you have?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I would agree with that, Diana. And, I continue to be impressed with Samsung Network. So, they've been a key launch partner of Verizon. So I wasn't surprised to see that they participated, with Qualcomm here, with this deployment proof of concept, whatever. But it continues to demonstrate the maturity of what Samsung Networks is doing from an infrastructure perspective. And it's a great segue to, like, my second topic this week and final topic. And AT&T and Ericsson announced a partnership which is going to allow AT&T to deploy 5G standalone across its C-band, spectrum assets. And the big, $1 million question for me is, how quickly can this happen, right? Anshel and I have talked about in the past, the characteristics of C-band. It is mid-band, but it's going to require densification. And, we've been sort of, opinionated with respect to how quickly Verizon, can get that out, given just the massive amount of spectrum that it purchased in the C-band auction. But what I found interesting with the Ericsson announcement with AT&T, there are a couple of different technologies that are going to be employed. 5G carrier ag, which is not surprising. There's also an advanced RAN coordination platform that's going to help bring some efficiencies to front haul. But what I found interesting is Ericsson has an advanced antenna system, and they believe that that's going to be key to getting C-band deployed, because that IP that they bring to market enables extended coverage while also supporting the right throughput and capacity for applications like FWA and that sort of thing. So I think it's going to also require some small cell densification to bring that all together. But it's exciting to see that AT&T is beginning to move now into standalone. We've talked about T-Mobile and how they've been first standalone in the US. But I'm wondering, Anshel, do you have any feedback here?
I'm glad to hear this announcement, and I'm hoping that this will speed up AT&T's deployment, because I just think that AT&T and Verizon have both kind of decided that they're slowing their deployment of standalone, even though I think that's a mistake. But I know that they are obviously choosing to do this because they probably don't think that standalone will be very useful unless they have mid-band rolled out. So I think they're prioritizing mid-band over SA, even though I do think that they should be doing both, because I think the business benefits of mid-band won't be realized unless you have standalone.
I'd agree. Diana, any thoughts?
The only thing I'd add is that in terms of timing, I'm not sure if it's specifically for their standalone rollout or just for their C-band rollout more generally, but we do know that AT&T is kind of planning to cover 70 to 75 million people with C-band by the end of next year. And then they're looking to push that to 200 million by the end of 2023. So I'll be interested to see whether that is indeed standalone or if that ends up being non-standalone. I think it's interesting because Ericsson's also they seem to be on a hot streak right now because right, did they also got that really massive deal with Verizon recently. It was something like 8 billion. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how AT&T's rollout plays out. To the previous point about needing densification, they have a lot on their plate right now. They're still getting rid of all the, well, they just closed, I think, the DirecTV deal, but they've got this whole fiber rollout also going on in tandem.
Yeah.
So I personally will be looking at whether they're running fiber to any of these maybe new densified towers. Because that's one of the things I've been working a lot more in wireline recently, and convergence is kind of the thing that everybody's talked about for the last couple decades, but is now actually finally a thing, right? Because fiber can feed not only the homes, but also the towers. So we know Verizon has already kind of got that in the back of their mind with, I think it's their one rollout. And I think AT&T is kind of looking at doing the same. So I'm going to be having an eye on that going forward.
Yeah, they do have a lot on their plate, certainly. So great insights, Diana. Let's move to your second and final topic this week. You want to talk about Orange and Nokia.
Yeah, so this is kind of one of those kind of tangential 5G topics, right? It kind of goes to some of the other stuff I've been interested in the way 5G and environmental issues have kind of collided. So in this case, I know you say Orange, it's very fancy, but Orange and Nokia.
The French pronunciation, right?
Orange and Nokia, they're teaming up to do some work to make RAN gear essentially recyclable. They're going to refurbish it and then redeploy it with Orange subsidiaries, which is kind of cool. This covers 3G, 4G, 5G, which will be interesting to see if that has any impact on 5G deployment costs, maybe in some of Orange's less prominent markets. I think they have several markets, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm doubting myself now. It's been such a day. But yeah, so I think that'll be interesting, not only to see for Orange, but to see if that catches on elsewhere, right? So power conservation has been a big thing for 5G, but now it's kind of 5G is becoming a vehicle for all these other initiatives. And this is just one of many that I've kind of seen going on across the space. And I'll be interested to see if other operators pick up on this and want to jump on board. Is there anything about this that stands out to either of you? Maybe Will, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I like it. It's green. Also, if you think about, and I don't know specifically, I didn't read through the entire announcement, but if you kind of add sort of the kind of CapEx superpower of Open RAN as well, this could be, quite compelling, right? So on the surface, I think, it's interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised to see other operators adopt it. I wonder, Anshel, what your thoughts are.
I actually think, I'm thinking, as the economist I am, I'm thinking about the economic impacts on pricing for equipment downstream, especially like lower end equipment, and what this might mean for pricing in developing countries. Because I think when you start flooding the market with affordable equipment that's refurbished, you actually give more choice. And as a result of creating more choice, you create competition for price. So I think this will actually drive some more competition in developing markets, which ultimately will allow developing countries to get access to more equipment less expensively and allow them to modernize more quickly, hopefully giving them the opportunity to have access to data to potentially improve their own condition when it comes to climate change and the environment, and build smart cities for cheaper using refurbished equipment.
Yeah, no, it could be quite compelling. Well, hey, buddy, your last topic this week, you want to talk about open signal report and T-Mobile.
Yep. So it's time for the October Open Signal report, which means we've got other ones coming very soon. But this one kind of supports what we've been talking about over the last year with T-Mobile's mid-band rollout, which is that their mid-band rollout is allowing them to pull away from the competition. And the fact that they have this low-band 5G means that they have 34.7% 5G availability nationwide, which is compared to AT&T's 16% and Verizon's 9.7%. So one, that's just like the time you have the 5G logo visible on your phone and it's not lying to you. And then when we're looking at download speeds, this is also another illustration of how much the mid-band is helping T-Mobile versus AT&T and Verizon. AT&T's 5G download speeds are averaging at 51.5 megabits per second, while Verizon's are at 56 megabits per second. And that's obviously because their low band 5G DSS is dragging down their millimeter wave now. And then T-Mobile's download is 118. So they're now well over 100 megabits per second, and they're well over double both of the operators. In fact, if you want to be obnoxious, you can say T-Mobile's 5G download speeds are faster than AT&T and Verizon combined. So that's a pretty big deal. I do think Verizon and AT&T will eventually catch up, but I think that T-Mobile will also continue to grow as its mid-band coverage and density improves. I truly believe mid-band is going to be a 2 to 3 year deployment for anybody. So I don't think we'll realize T-Mobile's mid-band potential until another 2 years from now. So I think AT&T and Verizon are going to be on that same 2 to 3 year cycle. And I don't see Verizon or AT&T rolling out their mid-band networks any faster than T-Mobile has. So we'll see what happens there. But other than that, upload speeds are actually a lot closer. And I think that's because, uplink, there's a lot less spectrum being utilized there. But T-Mobile was faster there too, with 16.1 megabits per second versus Verizon's 14 and AT&T's 9.7. There's also some gaming tests and video tests. Gaming and video, Verizon wins both of those according to OpenSignal. But overall, it's a pretty clear win for T-Mobile, especially when it comes to downloads and coverage, which is, I think, what most people care about right now.
Yeah. My comment, because I spend time with T-Mobile and as well as you, my friend, is that what I want to start seeing now, because they do have this lead from a deployment perspective, I want to see more discrete 5G services. I mean, we're seeing some pops here and there with, we've covered on a prior podcast this remote piloted vehicle service that's being launched in Las Vegas. It's not proof of concept; it's actually being launched. And but I think T-Mobile for Business, as they sort of mature that portfolio. I mean, obviously T-Mobile was very heavily consumer focused prior to the Sprint acquisition. Sprint brings some business acumen. Some of the leaders within the TFB organization are former Sprint executives like Mishka Dinigan. And so I'm waiting, for some of these, discrete, services that really take advantage of its lead on the deployment. I'm wondering, Diana, what are your thoughts?
Mine are more, I guess, personal in nature. I actually have T-Mobile service. I don't usually talk about who my carrier is, but in this case, there are times I will say, I wonder what the breakdown is between urban and rural performance. I feel like I'm in a pretty, not like a city, but I'm in the suburbs, right? And there are times where I have the 5G logo, I have 3 bars of service, and nothing's happening on my phone. So I do sometimes wonder how these are impacted by congestion. So like if you're driving home in traffic and you're in the passenger seat for sure, looking at your phone, and there are a bajillion other people next to you, how that might impact some of these speed performance. And to your point about enterprise services, how this will perform in a crowded office or a crowded stadium. So I just am curious about some of the methodology behind it, which is my own fault for not reading into it. But yeah, I like these reports, but sometimes I feel like maybe the picture is not as clear cut as they would lead us to believe. So the only other thing I would add is, Anshel already mentioned this, the C-band rollouts are coming from Verizon and AT&T. And I think that will be a real test of T-Mobile's mettle. Once Verizon and AT&T have their C-band out, then I think it'll be a much more interesting report because the playing field will be a lot more level. Everybody will have low band, everybody will have mid band, everybody will have millimeter wave if they so choose to deploy it, which T-Mobile did, but they just haven't talked about it that much.
Right.
So yeah, those are the reports I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and obviously, mid-band provides that optimal balance of performance and propagation. So yeah, I mean, time will tell, once C-band rolls out, and I agree with Anshel. It's not going to be a trivial deployment. It's going to be a couple of years. But this has been another great podcast, great insights. Thank you again, Diana, for coming on this week. And Anshel, why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. We hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide insights on a specific 5G topic for a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Diana is at DM Marie's Beat, Will is at Whaletown Tech, and I'm at Anshel Sag. We hope you have a great weekend, and please tune in again next week.